Welcome to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. I'm your host, Fabian motherfucking Ojeda, and I don't know shit, but that's okay. All right. Let's get this shit started. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. Hope you all enjoyed episode number 56 with Alfredo Otero, aka Wise El Jefe. Definitely wishing that guy a lot of luck on his podcast, the Stuck in My Mind podcast, and the Real Wise Productions company that he put together. It's definitely an interesting time. Anytime I get to talk to another podcaster, hear their story, how they started, and then just different strategies and philosophies they have. We have a little bit of that today as well. With our brand new guest today, I want to welcome Wes Tankersley of Shaping Success, the podcast. How you doing today, Wes?
Great, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
For sure. Where are you joining us from today?
I actually live in a suburb of Boise, Idaho called Star. So pretty close to Boise, about 10 miles away.
There's a lot of Californians moving over there, right? To Idaho right now?
There is. That's where you're from, right?
Yeah. I noticed a lot of people kind of just migrating over there, cheaper housing and you could build the shit from scratch,
Well, it was cheaper housing. That's changed a little bit.
So maybe we're a little bit to blame for that.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. It's growth, man. That's all there is to it. And they actually pay my bills because I sell window coverings by day. So, I can't complain too much.
All right. Well, every time I talk to somebody from another state, because we're still kind of in this whole worldwide pandemic thing at the tail end of it, I hope.
Yeah.
I like to kind of check in and see, how are you guys doing over there? I've talked to people from, New York and even different countries in Canada and whatnot. And everybody's at a different, at a different state right now, at a different level. Well, how are you guys doing in Idaho? Are things opening up? Is it back to normal? Or are you still kind of semi-lockdown, everybody wearing a mask type of thing?
It's pretty interesting. Last week was the first time we kind of really ventured out and kind of ate out. I mean, people have been doing it, but typically what you have to do is you have to have your mask on, walk in there, they sit you, you take your mask off, you can sit down, things like that. Everywhere you go, people were wearing masks, but as of recently, when the CDC dropped the mandate, Idaho is pretty open about it. And really Boise, the city of Boise itself has said, if the business requires you to wear one, you got to wear one. And if it doesn't, then you don't have to. And so we're pretty open, I'd say. I mean, the big thing is I think everywhere you go, everywhere you look, you see help wanted signs, right? Because they have a bunch of help wanted signs because people aren't going back to work and they need help. So I think when they've dismissed that excess money that you get in unemployment, which, people who are unemployment are making more money and what they were working in restaurants and things like that. So I think it's going to turn around. I mean, I think people are going to have to go back to work. It's kind of forcing them to do that because that's what we need, right? We need the economy to push up.
And I bring that up too, just because, I tell the story on here sometimes, but basically my podcast was born of the pandemic, just as a way to kind of, for one, have some kind of hobby to keep me sane, but at the same time, to talk to people, to interact with people. We're innovative people. We always find a way to not, be isolated and whatnot. And if I hadn't had the podcast, it would have been kind of like a crappy situation where I just, I don't like just, I'm an introvert, but I don't like just being all alone and having nobody to talk to, So that's kind of how my podcast started. How did you start yours? Is it kind of going for a while, or is it something new? What's the story behind your podcast?
Well, I started dropping this came into fruition the November before the pandemic happened. We knew it was coming. We knew something was happening, but it really wasn't out of the pandemic. It's just the pandemic has helped me grow it more because, more people are listening, more people are there, more people are looking for motivation, and I started listening to some podcasts, Gary Vee's was one of the first ones that I started listening to. And then I read his book and I started looking through there and I ran across Lewis Howes, who has the School of Greatness podcast. And, just a lot of things when you start listening to positive people and you start getting that vibe and get that help, it starts to just kind of open this doorway. Right. And originally I started it to help myself get more business in this window covering situation that I'm doing, because I wanted to interact with people and help them, grow their business. And I was going to interview local businesses to just kind of gain some business myself. And it kind of morphed, like it kind of changed into something. And through this epiphany, I started posting all these little live videos on Instagram, and they all live on my IGTV. And I was just kind of talking about me working through this process, because I've always been this person who's negative until proven positive. Right. So, the glass is half empty. And I started thinking about it, and I was listening to Lewis and I was listening to Gary, and I'm just like, why do I think this way? Why does everything have to be half empty? Why can't it be half full? And I just turned 40. So like, I was 38 when this all kind of went down, but it just made sense to me to flip that switch. And so when I started doing that, I started thinking about all the things that happened in my life and things that have shaped me and people who have molded me into what I was. And I just remember this vivid conversation when I think I was probably 18, and my little brother had some friends over, and they were partying, and they always were drinking a little, and obviously it's underage drinking, but they were drinking a little, and he looks over at me and he just like, you know what? Because I didn't drink and I wasn't doing all those other those things that other people were doing. He's like, I'm going to be twice as successful as you when I grow up. And dang. I'm like, holy, what? Like, and just in my mind, like my thought process at that time as an 18-year-old kid was, how in the hell can you determine that for me? How can you tell me that you're going to be more successful than me when you don't know what my success is? You don't know what your success is. You don't know what success looks like. Right.
Right.
And so that was kind of my mindset. It was like, what the hell? So I started thinking about that. And then when I was interviewing these people, like the first 4 or 5 episodes are of me trying to grow business. Right. So I interviewed, my boss, I interviewed a couple of realtors, I interviewed some people who were business oriented, trying to get that. And it morphed into me. And I changed the show. The show was called Treasure Valley Max Media. And then I changed the show I called it Shaping Success, because really what it means is, what is the shape of your success? How did you create that? So now I interview people and we talk about how they created something successful, whether it be a realtor, it could all fit. So it's really nice and broad, but I've had artists, I've had actors, I've had pro baseball players, I've had just regular everyday people talking about how they created a successful situation for themselves, and kind of give the blueprint to people how to do that.
Yeah. That's a big thing these days. I think people like to, read or listen to other people talking about, success, about good things. And I think it's just like how you mentioned, it's because a lot of the time we don't know how to cope with that, like inner negativity, and I can definitely relate to that. It definitely it resonated there when you talk about how you just realize one day you're like, damn, I'm really negative. And I was the same way, and I grew up that way, but, I grew up in not so ideal situations, and the typical kind of like I have a chip on my shoulder type of situation where I'm a kid who's mad at the world and everything like that, but I think, that you have to find some sort of success in order to get out of that slump. And I think it definitely it's a good topic. It's a good your podcast. It's a great topic. I mean, shaping success. Everybody has a different definition for it. For me, just really quickly, I think I dropped the whole I hate the world attitude when I was a kid in high school and I found wrestling. Yeah. I know you're a ball player, right? You're into baseball.
Yeah. So I was actually, it's kind of a funny story, because I coached baseball because I loved baseball. I was not very good at baseball. I was actually pretty good at football. I got a scholarship to play football, but I didn't take it. I thought there's growing up, the things that made me want to be successful really were sports, were coaches, were teachers, were my parents, like working really hard. I didn't have a terrible upbringing. We had enough. There was 3 boys. We were all really big. I'm 6'3", 260 pounds. And I was this big offensive lineman, not really that big. I found out later on, but that was it. It was like, we didn't struggle. My parents did struggle sometimes to just have enough money to take care of us, by getting us the things that we needed for all our extracurricular activities. But my coaches just instilled in me being on time, being present, doing better than I could the last time, the next time, and that's really what it is. It's like, I love the fact that I've had these things instilled in me, and I'm trying to share that as well. And that was kind of those videos. It was just like me talking about that because, I am I love baseball. And what I love about baseball, and you can relate this to anything in life, but you can do that with any sport. It's just what the fact of a guy going up and facing a pitcher, and 7 out of 10 times failing is a success. I mean, getting back in there and having to face that guy again and just look at what you're doing and re-engineering the last at bat, I mean, it's just what it is. It's like people who are successful. I have a friend that I interviewed, and she was talking about how she doesn't fail. And I was like, and I had this conversation with her. I was like, you do fail. You just get back on the horse and do it again. Yep. So you may have failed the first time and you don't look at it as a failure, but that's really the thing. It's like, you did fail. You just don't look at it like a failure. And I think that that's the biggest problem, is that most people will look at, if I went up and I got in that batter's box and I struck out, the world is over, right? It's the end of the whole situation. And the guys who are playing in the pros and the guys who are playing in college and the guys that are successful are the ones who can wipe that slate clean and realize what they did last time and get back in there and do it again. And that's kind of it's great. And that's what sports taught me.
For sure. I wonder sometimes if success, you kind of have to, like, once you've gotten good at something, you've become successful at it. If you have to challenge yourself, in something brand new, because I find that, something like high school wrestling, I was fairly successful in it. I thought I had a good little run there, but eventually, you can't do that forever, Right. And so when I started getting into the, the workforce, even something as simple as like being a nightclub bouncer, right? I jumped right into that after high school. And like, to me, I'm like, I want to be the best bouncer in the world. And it sounds right. like a dumb goal to some people, because they're like, well, you just stand around and check IDs and beat people up, but it was more than that. It was like, can I make more money? How can I get my name out there so people are requesting me to, do bodyguard work and stuff like that. And I had a really good run at that, but once I stopped doing that, I found myself in working in education and that, and after school programs and whatnot. I found really good success in that, and I think, I'm a few years younger than you, just a few. And I'm kind of at the slump right now where I'm like, damn, I need to find my next success.
Right.
And just briefly, we talked about it. You say you've been through a lot of different things, so can you talk about a little bit about, some of your successes and failures, and, if you're comfortable with that.
Oh yeah.
And what got you to this point of you mentioned being kind of negative and whatnot. So maybe what got you there?
I think one of the biggest things, I love John Wooden. You're in California, I'm assuming. So UCLA, John Wooden, he passed a few years back, but I've read a lot of his books, and it's funny how when you surround yourself with things like that, it kind of resonates. And I love what you're talking about. Like, okay, so I'm a bouncer, right? What can I do next? What's the next challenge in that? And that was kind of the way it was with me. It was like, I started out going, football was one of those things where I just didn't, when it was done, I kind of felt like it was done. I kind of left it in the past. I graduated from high school. My parents wouldn't allow me to, I got a scholarship, like I said, to an NAIA school, which was a pretty small school. It was basically, to me, it was like an upgraded high school. That was my thoughts on it. And they're like, well, you're getting some money to go play. And it was 8 hours away. And I had to pay, like I had a third tuition scholarship, which really wasn't that much. It was something, but it wasn't that much. And I thought I was better than that. I wanted to go play at a junior college. I grew up in rural Oregon. They didn't have a junior college, and the closest one that they had was on the Oregon-Idaho border, or Oregon-California border, called College of the Siskiyous. And it was a junior college, and they give you in-state tuition. My parents were like, you can go there if you want. And I'm looking at this town. I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to school here. I'm not doing this. There was a school close to some of my family down in California in Salinas called Hartnell. I wanted to go to school there. They had a football team. And I thought, I'll spend 2 years in a junior college and I'll get a scholarship, to go play at Oregon State. That's where I wanted to go. I was going to go play at Oregon State or University of Oregon or a Pac-10 school at the time. That's how old I am, because it was Pac-10. Now it's like Pac-12. Might even be Pac something else. But I couldn't do it. I could, and they weren't going to help me. So I left. I mean, I left my parents' house. I jumped in my truck. I threw all my stuff in there and I rolled out. And I realized within about a year that I couldn't really go to school without their help. Looking back, I probably could have. I just didn't have the drive that I have now. So I ended up moving back up to Moscow, Idaho, where they have University of Idaho. And my brother was going to college there. And they're like, we'll help you. You can live with him. It'll be cheaper. You can go to college. So I did, and I failed. Like my head wasn't in it. I walked onto the football team just to see. They did recruit me. They didn't offer me anything. I'll walk on, I'll make it on the team. And then this is when everything just kind of that was it. I was an offensive tackle, I played offensive line, and I'm lining up next to these guys that are, I'm 6'3", 270. They are 6'6", 310. And there's no way I'm moving that guy. Like I said, you're 18, 19-year-old kid. You're just sitting there looking at this and you're just going, no, it's not going to work. So that was it. I was done. I was going to college. The only thing that really would have kept my grades up was the fact that I was playing football, because I had to have good grades to play football. And then I started working part-time, and I worked at this company called Les Schwab that's here in the Northwest. And they, it's really big now. It's an independent store or an independent tire store. Now they've been bought out, and it's really big. So I worked there. And when you talked about being the best bouncer you could be, this company was great because it would allow you to work your way up. You had to start at the bottom, but you had to work your way up. And I was always chasing the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. I need that raise. I need to do this. I need to know everything I can, always trying to expand that knowledge to know everything that I could to be an assistant manager. And, I got that. And then I was like, what do I got to do to be a manager? And then I got stepped down as an assistant manager. I had to move to California, back down there from where I was. And I got stepped down. I made a mistake, and they essentially told me I couldn't be an assistant manager again. So that was one of those things where I had to make the choice. What am I going to do? Am I going to continue down this path because I could be successful in it? I could make pretty good money, but I was spending money that I was making. And I went back to working there just as a sales and service employee and got injured. I hurt my knee pretty bad, to the point where they told me, hey, this was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And they said, you're going to have to either have your knee replaced or you're going to have to quit doing this. So at that point I had a choice, right? My choice is continue to do this, lose my knee, go get it replaced, and then just, have it done again over and over again for the next, every 20 years, you got to get a new one. At 30 years old, you're like, that's a lot of knees.
Yep.
What kind of life am I going to have after that? So I went back to college. Essentially, I quit that job. Really tough to do because I had the security of money I was making and all that. And I went back to college and I got 2 degrees. I got my first one in 4 years. I went from being a 1.67 student the first time in college to 10, 11 years later, being a 3.75 guy for my bachelor's. And then I got like a 3.9 in my master's while I was teaching the first 4 years that I taught. Nice. And, it's one of those things though, that's bred into, I failed at that, but then I got it and I didn't really resonate with me like it did. Kids are different today. You can't reach them the way that you used to. Parents make a lot of excuses for kids. And then if you don't, pass them, don't allow them to do whatever they want, then it's your fault. The teacher did a bad job teaching them. They don't take any responsibility for their kids' actions, and they don't teach the kid to take responsibilities.
And I kind of want to pause there because, I do work in schools and I've worked at a lot of high schools and middle schools. You're a PE teacher, right?
Yeah, I was a PE teacher.
Especially in PE, man, it's like, the kids don't want to dress up anymore. And that's like, how the hell are you going to get a grade?
Yep.
And it's ironic that we're talking about success because PE is one of those places where you can very easily set a goal, something like as running the mile. I remember I was a big kid in seventh grade, and my seventh grade PE teacher, when he saw me walking the mile, he's like, you could have a much faster time if you just didn't stop running, right? Like I would maybe run the straightaways and, walk the rest, right? And he goes, if you just did not stop running, you would improve your time by probably like 5 minutes. And I did. And when I did it, I'm like, holy crap. Like I never felt like that in shape, you know,
Right.
and successful. I'm like at something like PE. So, I mean, that's a place where you can really build up your, you know, your self-esteem, you know, you can really kind of set your goals, right?
Yeah.
But they don't even want to dress anymore. And you know, they'll get backed up by some stupid rule, you know, where it's like, oh, well, you know, they brought a note for this and blah, 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 and it violates this and that. And I commend you, man, but I don't know how you put up with that. Because these PE teachers these days, I'm like, oh, yeah, they must have nerves of steel.
Well, and it was real tough too, because really you can't grade too tough, right? You can't like grade them really hard, because if they're giving, you can't judge what effort is. So like your story about having a hard time running a mile, right? I get that. I understand that. In my mind, with you in the mile, like you could improve every time. You know, there's going to be a point where you can't improve anymore, or it's going to be a lot harder to improve. But my thing was, hey, improve by 30 seconds, improve by 15 seconds, be better this time than you were the last time. And that was the thing. It was like, all you have to do is dress down, show up, and be better than you were the last time. Just a little bit. Like, even if it was a second, at least you showed improvement. And they didn't want to do that. I mean, this is the craziest story that I've ever heard. I had a gal that was this was the last year I was teaching. She's a senior. Okay. Requirement in Idaho is that you have to take a year of PE. So 2 semesters, right? That's nothing. I mean, I took it every single semester I was in high school. Plus I took weight training because I enjoyed it so much, right? Not everyone enjoys it. I get that. I understand that. But this gal shows up to my class, very athletic, very good shape, very fit, just didn't want to participate. So she shows up, she dresses down. And then, you know, the thing was like, if you didn't feel well or whatever, I'd just let you go walk. You know, there's all kinds of issues that kids come up. I'll give them 2 chances, you know, throughout the semester to just kind of have a day off if they wanted to, which I never got a day off. It was do it or go to the principal's office. But you have to make these adjustments because that's the way it is. Well, this gal gets a doctor's note. Okay. So she's a senior. And then I start to unravel the story a little bit. She did not pass her freshman PE. She did not pass her sophomore PE. So she's continued to take it. Her junior year, she took it online. She could not pass an online PE class. Because really what it is, it's at this point, I'm sitting here going, well, she's just lazy. She just doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to have to do the work. And that's the hard part. So you're sitting there thinking, okay, so what am I supposed to do? So now I'm getting doctor's notes. Like you said, here's a doctor's note. I have mono. I've had mono for 3 months, blah, blah, blah. I mean, and then the mono's gone. The doctor's cleared it up or whatever. The counselor's telling me that I have to give her a passing grade. I can't score her on the days that she has a doctor's note. I can only score her on the days that she participated. So the days that she participated, which was like 10 out of the whole semester, we're good. And so she ends up graduating high school, you know, because it's a requirement. So like if she didn't pass my class, she didn't graduate high school. She graduates high school without taking PE, which is a requirement for every single other individual in the school because she found a way to get around it. And I just hate that. What are we teaching kids?
Right.
To find an excuse to get out of it. You know, I mean, I was overweight as well. You know, like I hated running the mile. It was the worst thing for me, but guess what? I did it.
Yeah.
Right. And I tried to be better every single time. And that's the hard part. Like when you're the overweight kid, when you're the kid who's not very skilled, when you're the kid who's not, and I always try to make it like with my students, I was always trying to tell them, just be better than yesterday. That's all I care about. If you did 1 push-up today and then you had to do 9 on your knees, that's okay. Try tomorrow to do 2 and then do the other 8 on your knees or whatever. But there's always a way around it. And, you know, to get better every single day. And we can work on that. But when you cheat yourself and when you do those things, those aren't the people that I want running. You know, sooner or later, they're going to run our country.
And that's the scary part.
Yeah.
You know, because they were able to like, you know, basically lawyer their way out of everything. And it's like,
right.
You know, I don't get that, you know, and, you know, just kind of an aside. And I know some people that listen are in education and they might be counselors, but there's a lot of counselor coddling going on right now with the kids too, where, you know, like they're the ones that kind of just give them the pass too. And I could talk for days and days and days about, education and what's wrong with some of these systems, but
well, the funny thing is that there has to be a shift, like, and this is just my position on the whole thing. There has to be a shift in the way that they're doing things, because really in reality, I see the writing on the wall. Okay. It's from the top. It's where it starts. And the principal has to show that the kids get really good test scores in order to keep his job.
mm-hmm.
So if the principal has to show that they have to get really good test scores to keep his job, then he has to coddle those kids. He has to make them feel better about themselves. He has to get them to not, because now they go in and they take these standardized tests. I remember when I was a kid going in, it was like, it's testing week. And like,
yep.
You're at a desk with 2 pencils, and we had the Scantron things, I mean,
Yep.
not anymore. Now it's like you get on a laptop and you click and there you go. So they had these kids called happy clickers, would just go in there and just, hey, they're done, they're out.
Uh-huh.
And so they're like, well, we can't force them to do it. We can't force them to do good on the test. And so everything's based on test scores. So now when a counselor says, well, we have to show this to get this funding, they're looking at it, and the principal's coming down on them because the kids aren't getting good grades. And, like, it's from the top down. It's all there is to it. And the principal's based on what the governor says or the school board says or whatever. I mean, it's got to change from the top. And
yeah.
It's essentially why I'm not a teacher anymore, because I couldn't justify it. I couldn't condone it. I couldn't say that it was okay for me to watch that happen and be
mm-hmm.
satisfied with that. So it's tough. I struggle with my own kid because, she's 7 and she's in the first grade and she's never had homework.
Wow.
And the teacher says, the other day I was going through Tatum's desk and I found 4 of her assignments, and she doesn't have homework, grant you. She found 4 of her assignments in her desk that she hadn't turned in. Huh. And I'm like, 4 assignments she hadn't turned in. She doesn't have homework. How long were those assignments sitting in her desk and unaccounted for?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand that. I don't get it. Why is, and it's hard to be critical of teachers because I was one and I understand what they're going through. But in my mind, she should have homework. Mm-hmm. She should be responsible. If she's doing in-class work, there should at least be a check mark in a grade book or a check mark on the paper showing that the teacher saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And not 5 days later. I mean, that assignment gets turned in, especially during the pandemic right now, because there's 15 kids in a classroom instead of 30, which is, that's huge. As a teacher, that's huge. I never had less than 30 kids in a class. And at most times as a PE teacher, you have like 45, 50.
Yeah.
So that's huge for an in-classroom teacher to only have 15 kids, and you can't keep track of the 15 kids assignments. I mean, what are we teaching them? We're not teaching them to be, they don't have to turn in their work. That's crazy. If I don't show up for work, I get fired. Yep. I mean, if I don't turn in my assignment for school, I got an F, and it just doesn't work that way anymore because they're afraid of offending someone, which I just think is failure is part of life. And we got to figure out that you're going to fail sooner or later.
And that's the thing, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk, why I wanted to talk about this, the whole teaching thing, because we're not teaching failure anymore.
No,
and failure is like a huge piece of success. I don't think, anybody who's ever experienced a great amount of success, hasn't experienced some type of big failure too. Right. You gotta fall on your ass every now and then and walk around with a bruised ass.
You ask anyone who's successful if that just happened. I mean, you look at, like, I don't know if you know who Grant Cardone is, but it's one of my favorite stories. Dude lost everything. He had millions of dollars in real estate, lost everything, and then came back. He tells the story about how that happened, but everyone else just sees this guy who makes millions and billions of dollars, and they don't see everything that he had to go to be successful.
Right.
It's crazy. Any successful person has failed. They figured out a way to work it out and make it better.
And that's what I want to ask about too. Do a lot of your guests that you talk to on your podcast, do they talk about the failures leading to their success?
They do. And it's funny too, because I try to bring that out. That's a big point to me, is that, again, there is failures. There are times where you didn't pass the class. There are times where you started something. And I think that's the biggest thing about it. Like, entrepreneurial people, an entrepreneur wasn't a word that was in my vocabulary, even though I knew what it was until now. They fail, but they throw. It's like they throw as many things on the board that they can, and then they just narrow it down. It's like a pyramid. It starts really wide at the bottom. It starts to get up, and then it gets to that point, and boom, there it is. And so they failed at so many things that you don't see, and they talk about that. It's crazy. It's like, I interviewed Mark Simo, he owns Trust Me Vodka now, but he was the guy who created No Fear. You remember No Fear?
The energy drink?
The clothing line.
Oh, the clothing line, the MMA clothing line too, right?
Yep. Yeah. They had Bad Boy Club. They had No Fear. They had Life's a Beach. Like, he's created all these things, and they essentially went bankrupt and out of business, but he had a choice, right? Okay, so I'm going to quit or not. So then he starts Spy Eyewear. He built Spy Eyewear.
Oh, it's the same person.
Same guy, sold Spy Eyewear, and that now he's got Trust Me Vodka, which is this awesome new brand that, the people who are investing in it are the owners. And so it's really cool. It's a great story, but he told me, because the path to success is paved with failure. And it really is. The road of success is paved with failure. There is failure no matter what you do. And we don't teach kids how to fail. We give them that trophy. We allow them to, I participated, so I therefore have been successful. And it's not true. It's not. In the end, when you get older, you look at like baseball, for example. In high school, there's a state champion, right? So that means that every single other person in that class in that state failed.
Yep.
They don't look at it that way. Same thing with pro baseball. Got a World Series champion. Everyone below that champion failed. And it happens. We just don't teach kids that anymore. We teach them that you're successful no matter what.
Yeah. No.
You give your best effort.
Got to embrace that failure and move on for sure.
Yep.
Now, as far as your podcast goes, how deep into it are you? Like, how many episodes deep are you?
I have. It's funny because I missed this major milestone because I stopped like kind of really pushing on it. But I hit 100 episodes.
Nice.
I just hit 100. I haven't released the 100th episode, but I've interviewed, not interviewed 100 people, but I've done 100 podcast episodes. My show from the 5th episode on has pretty much been a live show minus what I used to do, like call it a bonus coverage. So I'd interview someone and then I do just an audio bonus coverage on that episode, talking about the things that I took away. It's a really short episode. So I've interviewed probably over 60 guests, and then the rest are those short episodes. But I just interviewed the 100th person, and I didn't I'm sitting there thinking, well, I need to get someone on for my 100th episode that's really big, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it just so happened that it ended up being the gal I just signed a show to the network that I do my live show on. And she ended up being a 100th episode. And it's been really great talking with her because has this really successful planning. She's like kind of like a party planner. She calls it a producer, but she produces these big events. So she does like festivals and things like that. And we're going to do a golf tournament up here in Idaho, but she's starting a cooking show. And so it was really exciting to realize that that's going to be, to me, that's a milestone, and it was a really good guest to have on there, but I didn't even know that it was happening, So,
just kind of coincidence.
Yeah. And it was a great coincidence. I mean, I feel like that's the way that life is, though. Like, you connect with people that do the same things that you do. You connect with people who have positive vibes. You connect with people who are doing the same thing that you're doing. And it's once you make that switch, like, it really is. It's the law of attraction. Negative things attract negative things, positive things attract positive things. And I think that that's why we're here, right? That's why we're talking, because we have the same kind of content. We have the same kind of ideas. We think the same kind of way. And you want to share that with your audience. And I want to share what I have with other people. I mean, it's
for sure.
Yeah. I'm still a teacher, even though I don't teach in a building.
Yeah. I always have that mindset. What's the end game? What do you want to do with your podcast? Is it something that you see being kind of like something that you monetize and that you turn into, this big thing? Everybody, kind of correlates as like Joe Rogan. Do you want to do like the Joe Rogan route, right? Or, I mean, like for me, for example, I know we talk about goals and success and everything, but to me, it's honestly still just a hobby. And I think it's going to stay a hobby for me because I have fun with it, but I don't really want to pursue it super deep, right?
Yeah.
So what's your end goal for your podcast?
Well, mine is really to be a personality. I mean, that's really what it is. I listen to a lot of these shows. Love him or hate him, Adam Carolla is one of these people who has like 4 or 5 shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really like, listening to his stuff and listening to it like like some people will say, he leans way far to the right. He doesn't, like, he's just freaking objective. And that's what I love. But he has a bunch of different shows. He has the Adam Carolla show, then he has Ace on the House, and he does Adam and Dr. Drew. I want to have a bunch of shows. I mean, I want to do this for a living. Right now I'm booked out until August with my show, and I do, I record 4 a month. And so, I've got 16 more interviews to do. And that's just what's going. It's like every time I get some guest who wants to be on, or I want to invite someone on, I have to say, I'm sorry, I really want to get you on, but it's going to be this long, or I have to try and adjust things, because my show is it's a video show, really. It's not just audio, and I have to, I do upload the audio. I think I would consider it more of like a vlog or a show, because that's really what the network is turning into. They just got it set up so that we have series set up. So I have every single episode in a series on the Facebook page, and it's going to be a live stream network. So it's cool. I mean,
yeah,
I want to have 4 shows on that thing. But I got to make money first, right? And that's the thing. It's like, I'm very patient with what's happening. I'm pushing really hard to find that next guest. I need sponsors, and that's what I'm trying to do, because once I can pay the bills with that, then I will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a good concept too, though. I think, and it's a good market, because people, like I said, people always want to like buy into the positivity thing. I mean, so much so, I think, would you say too that there's like a pocket of people that have like that false positivity and false success? Because I see a lot of that online. Like people that, they're like, oh, I do things this way, I'm living a great life, and really all you're doing is just like, it's just an online self-masturbation type of thing. Like, you're saying you're doing great things, but you're really not. Do you see that a lot, or not so much?
I mean, you see it, but I mean, in their mind, and that kind of goes back to like, what's the shape of your success? I mean, in your mind, is that successful? Because maybe that is. And I guess the way that I look at it is like, you do you, I'll do me. And if I'm happy, I'm happy. And if you're happy, you're happy. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. I mean, I do see that. I do think that. I try not to, though. It's kind of hard. Like you were talking about earlier, like that negative stuff always creeps in. And I have a friend who was talking about how he calls it hater math, and he talks about how you got 100 good compliments here. Like, I have 100 people saying good things about my show, right? And then I got this one guy who just is like, you suck. And then you sit there and you're like, you suck. Everyone just told me this is awesome, and you said I suck. And so then we put it on the scale, right? And so the weight that we put on those 100 good comments and the weight that we put on the one, and the scale is tipping really high. Like the one negative comment weighs way more than the positive comments, the 100 versus the 1. It just doesn't make sense, And so I think that that's the biggest thing. It's like, I try not to let that stuff bother me. In the end, any attention is good attention, right? I mean, like, if someone's saying something negative about you, you look at some of these people that say some negative stuff, and they have a huge following. And they have a following, right? So some people are into that, some people are not. And I don't know. I just don't want to bank on that. I think that those people, everyone's missing a little something. You look at most podcasters, they make it 6 episodes. I'm glad you made it to 50. Would you say this is 50 what?
This will be 57.
57. I mean, a lot of my friends that I've talked to over the past year who were hardcore on it, like I am, have dropped off. And it's just, they drop off because, one, like, COVID kind of gave everyone an opportunity to do something like this. And there's tons of podcasters, and I'm happy for each and every one. I don't listen to everyone that I can find. But if you're willing to do the work, and keep doing it, whether you get a ton of downloads or not, like, I don't get a ton of downloads. I mean, I have, like, my highest downloaded episode is that Mark Simo one. It's got like 172, but I average about 50. For the podcast part. And, I get around 100 views on my videos. So it's not big yet, but the idea that it will be and that I'm trying to make it better every single time.
Mhm.
It started out as an iPad and tripods with 2 phones on it, and me just talking to my iPad sound was not as good as it could have been, and then it turned into them seeing that and telling me, hey, we want to sponsor you for your show. And now it being a live show, kind of like an interview, like a TV interview. And then started out with like a Blue Yeti mic. And now I've got the RE20. And now I just ordered another RE20 because I'm doing a lot of in-studio stuff and I want the sound to be the same and having someone edit it for you. And, I edited it for a long time. It's just wanting to be better every single time. Right.
Yeah.
And that's in anything in life. And I love that you talked about that because I think that that's being better, It's like I was talking about John Wooden. He said, being the best at what you're doing, no matter what it does, and knowing that you left it out all out on the table. Success.
Nice. Yeah, man. I still, I'm glad you answered it that way because, I brought it up, because I see a lot of like, people that toot their own horn, and I guess you're right. Let them. Hey, that's your thing. That's your success.
Yep.
I still got a little bit of poison in me, too, where
I do too. That's the thing though, man. Like it's still there, right? You still, no matter what, it takes work. And I don't think people understand that. Like you just expect for it. I changed my mind. I changed the way that it is, but the negative shit still creeps in. It's still there. You just have to learn to navigate it differently and continue to push towards, what's right? You know what your goal is, what you want, but you have to just continue to push at it. And I think that that's what you talked about, like the next challenge, right?
Yep.
The next challenge is not to hear that,
Mhm.
and I'm trying every day not to hear it. I don't think it'll ever be completely gone, but
yeah, because like I'll see some people online where they're like bragging about, oh, I'm doing great in this, I'm doing great. And I'm thinking to myself, I know you in real life. Like,
Right.
You're not doing all that, but you're right. Maybe, they define it a different way and let them, enjoy their success. So that's something. I mean, I don't go out of my way to be like, hey, you suck,
Right.
but in my head, I'm still like, you're not doing that great, but, I guess that kind of stuff, like it'll eat you up if you, keep focusing on the negative. So that's a little bit of that poison I got to spit out every now and then.
Yeah. And it's there, man. Trust me. Like I'm telling you, like you can look at, and that's the one thing that I try to be really open and honest with my audience about is the fact that not only am I trying to help you work through this, I'm working through it myself. I mean, that's the big thing is like, we have to show people that they're going through that. I had a guest on that talked about his struggles with, creating film and things like that. And, some of the things that he struggled with and people telling him that he wasn't good enough and him not thinking that he was good enough and things like that. And I told him, I said, he's like, I don't know if I want to put that on there. And I said, dude, people need to hear this. People need to know that if they're in the same spot that you are, you're helping them. And it doesn't matter. It's just like what you're doing. You're helping someone. I hope that one person hears this interview and it changes their life. I hope that one person hears one of your interviews and it changes their life. Because if it does, this is kind of what I'm getting from you. If it does, you've done what you're trying to do.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to change lives. And it doesn't matter if it's just one or if it's 1,000,
Well, because like, for the podcast, right. I never like wanted to do the Joe Rogan thing. I'm like I said, it's just a hobby for me. Right. Yep. But I've gotten so much good feedback on it that I kept it going. I thought at some point I'm like, I was going to be like those people that only do 6. Right. But I was probably going to keep it like at 50 and be okay, wash my hands. Yeah. I'm done. I put it out there. It's on Spotify forever. Right. And I just kept getting good feedback. Like, oh, this is, I wait for the episode to come out every week. And this is from people I don't really know, and I see the listeners too. And I look at the listener map. I'm like, if it were like an anomaly and it just popped up one time, like in Belgium, right? I'd be like, well, that's weird, but it is what it is. It pops up every week, and same thing with, all kinds of different other countries. And I'm like, if I'm getting play over there and people are telling me they enjoy it and it's not really like a hassle, it's actually fun, like might as well keep it up, because we have had some interviews where, they're pretty intense, they're pretty deep, and I've had great feedback on those. Like one of the ones I always point to, is one of my early episodes where we talk about trauma and abuse. And I had a guest on who was very open and shared a lot, and people got a lot out of that. They're like,
Yeah.
I'm glad she shared, because I was going through the same thing, and I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool. That's pretty powerful, being able to connect, people who don't even know each other, just by telling a story. And shit, man, it's more than I thought I was gonna accomplish on there. So that's, I mean, to me, if you ask me, have I had a successful podcast? But yeah, I think it's pretty successful. Not making any money, or getting on any award shows or anything like that. But I mean, people enjoy it, and I enjoy it. So I mean, it's a success for that.
That's the thing. It's making a difference. Like I said, there's so many people who have benefited from what you're doing. And, I would just continue to do it as long as you can, as long as you feel like it's something. I mean, we're essentially having a conversation here from miles and miles away, and you're recording it. We're going to throw this up, and people are going to listen to it, and you can continue to do that. And there's people who want to listen to that. So
for sure.
It's been great. I mean, that's the thing with it. People want to hear it. People want to know. There's a lot of stigma around a lot of things. I had a person who talked about mental illness on my show, and it's like, I remember back in the day when someone was mentally ill, they'd take them and shove them in the corner, or send them away, or do something with them. And now we're talking about it, and it's not normal. But it's funny though, listening to people, like, everyone has their own shit. Everyone has their own problems that they deal with every single day. And we can define that as mental illness, or we can define that as just something that's normal, and we just deal with it. Right. But it's mental illness is that thing too. It's like, let's just go hide them in the corner. No, don't do that. Talk to them, figure out what's going on with them, share what you used to deal with that. Maybe it will help them, things like that. And we don't talk about it. It's
the worst thing you do is shove it in the corner.
Yeah, that's exactly true. It's like, okay, so go be ashamed in the corner, instead of having, talking it out and figuring out what you can do to make it better.
For sure. Well, Wes, it's been a hell of a conversation. Definitely, I'm up early over here on my end. I wasn't expecting a great conversation that early, but where can people find you if they want to check out your work?
Yeah, the best place to find me is at Wes.Tankersley. I'll spell it for you, at WES.TANKERSLEY on Instagram. You can follow me. I do have a Shaping Success Facebook page as well. I welcome anyone there. The link in my bio always is directed to the most recent show. So right now it is with Megan K. Goldman, who's one of this gal that is my 100th episode. So, that's where you can find me. Like TVPBN, where that show is. If you click that link in my bio, go like it, because you'll see a bunch more of my episodes, plus a bunch of other good stuff where it's growing.
Cool, man. Anything else you want to throw out there to the podcast world before we close it up?
I just want to say thanks to everyone for, being an audience, listening. We've got a lot of great things going on. I wanted to say thank you to you for dealing with my tardiness. I'm very sorry that happens. I know you were up early, and I appreciate that. I just got a lot going on, and I spaced it, and I'm glad that we were able to do it, because I know that time is valuable. And when something like that happens, it kind of just, I know for me, it's kind of like, where is this person? And I'm just glad we were able to do it.
Well, the only thing I was worried about is, like, should I start the ribs now or later?
Oh, I got some ribs. So you're barbecuer, huh?
Oh yeah. I love the smoking ribs, and I'll do like a pork shoulder every now and then, or some tri-tip.
Oh yeah, that's tri-tip's kind of my jam. I do brisket and ribs a lot too. I do brisket less than I do ribs, because brisket's like, man, you got to get up at 3 a.m. and throw that bad boy on there. But,
yeah, that's a 24-hour job there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Totally worth it when it's done.
Yeah,
it's just like you're sitting there going, is this thing gonna ever get done?
Oh no, so that's a different episode there. We might have to jump on.
Yeah, if you ever want to talk about grilling, let's do it. I'm your guy. That was part of the cooking show, is we did a little grilling on the cooking show last weekend. That was, in my backyard. So
I just got a real quick before we close it out. I just got a brand new in it, and I got it because I saw it. I saw a commercial for it on. Well, I don't know, commercial. What do you call it? Like an ad for it on YouTube. And it was of all companies, Cuisinart made it. The Cuisinart Claremont, and it has like French doors. It looks like an oven, huge. So I just got it, recently to upgrade from my old smoker, and I'm gonna put that thing together and just, I mean, I think it can hold like 12 racks of ribs, something like that.
Oh, holy smokes, that's a big dog.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I have a Rec Tech. I have a RT 700, and it can hold probably 320-pound briskets on it. I'm like,
nice.
this, the other day I was like, this might be a little overkill. But
Yeah.
you can put everything you want on there, and that's what it sounds like you got. Put the whole
Uh,
meal on there. Everything
yeah,
tastes
yeah.
better with a little smoke in it.
Uh-huh. But yeah, that's another one, man. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having you on. And good luck with everything.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
For everybody listening at home, I appreciate it. Thank you. Fuck you and good night. Subscribe to the Ignorance is Strength podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Like, follow, and share on Facebook and Instagram at Ignorance is Strength Podcast, and on Twitter at The Ignorance Pod.